and there's these thick mud-like shit mitts on both my hands.
Hey, I'm Mike Hipple, and welcome to Live Through That, the companion podcast to my book of the same name. The book is a collection of portraits and in-depth interviews with some of my favorite 90s musicians. On this podcast, we'll use each episode to delve deeper into a single pivotal moment in the life of one of the artists from the book, as well as hear some of the things that they are currently obsessed with. Today, we're talking to Rob Zabrecky. Nowadays, he's well known for his skills as a magician and actor, but in the 90s, he was the front man for Possum Dixon, who scored a couple of alternative radio hits with Watch the Girl Destroy Me and Emergency's About to End, before calling it quits at the end of the 90s. For his pivotal moment, we go way back to before he was a rock star. Kids, don't try this at home.
Well, I grew up in Southern California. I was born in 1968, and by about third grade, I started getting a really bad case of warts. One showed up on my thumb, then a couple more, and I had about 5, then 7, and it was time to go to the doctor. So my mother took me over to the family doctor a few blocks away. We got them burned off, and he prescribed this gooey wart remover liquid called Compound W. In case they should come back, this would burn them away for sure, and they'd never come back. Well, they did come back, and after another 10 appeared on my hands, we went back again, and they burned them off. And I kept using this Compound W, and before I knew it, these warts were sort of ruining my little kid life. I was already a little bit of an awkward kid, out of step with other kids who were sort of more athletic. I was more artistic, I guess you could probably say. And so these warts made me very self-conscious, and I would keep my hands in my pockets. Unbeknownst to me, when you've got a bad case of warts and you keep your hands together in clammy places, they spread. So, again, also unbeknownst to me, I've got this virus that's causing these warts. But all I know is that they keep coming back, and they're making my life really uncomfortable. They're starting to notice, and they say awful things like, what'd you do? Kiss a frog? What'd you do? Fuck a frog? What'd you do? What's wrong with you? Basically they treat me like an alien, and keeping me just a little further out of step with the rest of my third grade class. So these warts keep coming back, and they keep coming back, and I think this is my life. I'm just going to be the guy with the warts. I've got 48 warts on my hands at this point. And that's how it was. I just kept in my pockets. I was maybe more shy, more introverted, and I hated my warts. Well, in 1980, my family takes our first trip on a plane, and we go to the United Kingdom, where it's my mother's home country in Scotland. And while we're there, some really amazing things happened. It was a great summer in 1980 because I discovered, among other things, punk music. There were these hoodlum kids running around through the streets of this small town east of Glasgow in a small town called Patna, a little farm town, and they were singing songs by the Sex Pistols and the Clash, and they looked, they had the ripped up jean jackets and buttons and safety pins, and were truly, in their spirit, punk. They were out of line with, kind of out of the realm of what was going on, at least culturally, in Scotland for sure. But I was fascinated by these kids, and they kind of took me in as one of their own. Me being this kind of odd kid from the United States and being over there for the summer, we kind of hit it off and was running around with them and enjoying the summer just fine. Everything was kind of okay. And then one afternoon, I'm over visiting my mother's great aunt, and she sees my warts, and she says, "Oh, you've got a terrible case of those warts. Well, I know how to cure those warts. I'm like, okay, how? And she says, all you need to do is go down to the river dune. You'll see a bunch of cows, about a dozen cows, and wait for one of them to relieve themselves and dip your hands deep in the cow dung. Let them soak for a few minutes, let it set for 20, 30 minutes, and rinse the cow dung away. You got to do this every night, every day for a fortnight, and those warts will vanish. Well, the way she says it is so matter of fact. I think she's putting me on. And after she takes a long hit off of her cigarette, I say, what's a fortnight? She says, it's 2 weeks, my love. It's 2 weeks.
I was thinking it was a bunch of nonsense. I'm very truthful. If you know anything about me, if I think it, I kind of say it. I thought this is just nonsense. It's an old wives' tale.
That's Rob's Aunt Patricia, otherwise known as Auntie Pat. She was with Rob and his family on their vacation that summer.
Robbie was ready to try anything. He had the warts burned off and they multiplied. And he would walk, as a kid, he'd walk around with his hands in his pockets. He was so ashamed of his hands. So he was ready to try it, and he did it faithfully. Every morning he'd walk down, we called it the old brig. He'd walk across the old brig and he'd go into the field and he'd wait for that fresh, hot, steaming cow pie and stick his hands in it. And then, by the time he would have walked back to Auntie Nan's, it would have dried in. And then he just washed and chipped it off.
So I'm sitting there thinking, I'm rubbing my bumpy fingers against one another. This crazy idea of dipping my hands in cow poop for 14 days in a row just sinks in. Then the words just pop out of my mouth. Which way to River Dune? How do I get there? So she draws a little map on a paper napkin leading down to this bridge over this river. And I'm off. That was it. I just couldn't wait to get down to this bridge and find this little river, and a 10-minute walk. And there it is. It's quiet. It's still. It's a bunch of cows, me. I'm 12 years old. And I look around, and one of them kind of squares off with me, looks at me, and then takes the biggest shit you've ever seen. Literally like turning on a hose. I don't know if you've ever seen a Scottish cow take a dump. It's quite a sight. It goes and it stops, and it is like hot liquid pouring out. It's just high pressure, and it creates this big mound of cow dung. I'm like, well, I guess this is it, and I approach the mound of cow dung, and I think to myself, like, this is kind of probably the weirdest, craziest, stupidest thing I've ever done. And I just plunge my hands in this stuff. And it's hot, it's actually very hot. And I let them kind of soak around in there. I'm just holding back the vomit from, I'm like dry heat. I'm just like want to puke in this stuff. It's so disgusting and gross. I've never done anything like this before. I hold them for as long as I can. I pull them out, and there's these thick mud-like shit mitts on both my hands. And I'm like, okay, I did it. So I pull my hands out of this hot cow dung, and I can feel the weight of these thick shit mitts on my hands. I'm like, okay, that's it. I did it. I can't believe I did it. I didn't puke. I'm walking straight back to my aunt and uncle's house we were staying. I rinsed off the cow dung, and I waited for my warts to go away, thinking that they were instantly going to vanish. Remembering that it was going to take 2 weeks. Like, I've got 13 more days of this. And next day, same time, afternoon, I walked down to the River Dune. I dipped my hands in the cow dung. Again, wait for the cow to shit, put the hands in, and this is my routine. About 4 or 5 days in, people start noticing that this little kid from America is walking through their town with cow dung on his hands, and the word got out. People started kind of peeking through their windows. There's that weird little kid. It was this. I was this sort of anomaly. visitor in their town who has kind of doing this very strange ritual. So it got easier and easier, that was it. I last day came, I went down there, I, did the dip, walked through. On the last day though, I'm walking back and there's this wind is rolling through the little town of Patna. And as my hands are up in the air, this gust of wind just sort of knocks a piece of the cow dung off of my hands and into my eye, which burned like acid. And it was, of course, acidic. We're like, it's a grass, right? So this thing's burning my eye. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna go blind on top of, what am I doing? I'm like most idiotic 12-year-old known to man. Rinse it off. I say goodbye to my friends, these kids. They were these punk kids who called themselves the Patna Punk Army, the PPA. Say goodbye to them. Kind of excited about this new music that they're listening to, because at 12 I was a pretty avid music fan, but I kind of come back with like, well, I just dipped my hands in the cow poop and I discovered this new music. Wow, this is definitely like some new chapter stuff, Well, then guess what happens? Those warts started retracting into my hands, and relatively quickly they vanished. Every single one of them just went away. Of course, my mother reported the news back to my aunt in Patna. And a few weeks later, I got my first piece of mail addressed to me. And I actually have it in front of me. I'm gonna read it to you, because this is an article that appeared in the Air Advertiser, 1980, September 12th. And the name of the article is called Robbie's Strange Cure.
We were in like a little tiny mining village, a coal mining village, but the bigger town was probably only about 15 miles away. And they sent a reporter, they did a whole thing, the Air Advertiser, American boy comes to Patna for miracle wart cure. I mean, they did a whole great big thing in the newspaper. It was a big deal. It really was a big deal.
And here's what it says. Young American holidaymaker Robbie Zabrecky got an unexpected bonus when he spent a fortnight with his aunt and Uncle Jim and Patricia Cran in Patna. Robbie, 12, who was in Scotland with his parents, brother and sister and cousin, arrived with 47 warts on his hands. The family had spent $800 the previous year having them removed, but the cure was only temporary. While in Patna, Robbie heard that cow manure helped create the ugly and uncomfortable warts to go away. So every morning for a fortnight, Robbie paid a special visit to a field at Newbridge in Patna. Some folk felt he was daft, but Robbie had the last laugh. When he left for America, the warts were dead and his hands were almost smooth again. So this was a life-changing moment for little Robbie Zabrecky from Burbank. Warts being gone from my hands led me to feeling like a confident, 13-year-old. It's like coming of age kid. And had a growth spurt. I started getting the attention of cute valley girls from the 7th grade. These girls were handing me notes and packs of gum. Hey, come to this party. Meet us over here. Meanwhile, I discovered this great radio show that came out of LA called Rodney on the Rock, which was Rodney Bingenheimer, of course, the great American DJ who was playing cutting edge music of the time, stuff I'd heard over there with my friends from Patna, like Sex Pistols and The Clash, but also bands like X and Black Flag and the Go-Go's and all kinds of new music, and everything in my life changed. And so much of that is attributed to that brave moment that I took when I was like, I'm going to do this, because I was desperate and I had a burning desire to kind of change who I was. And I think that accomplished that.
Rob tells this tale and many others in his 2019 book, Strange Cures, which might be one of the best music memoirs I've read in a long time. Highly recommended. And speaking of recommendations, we couldn't let our guests go without getting a few of their favorite things for you to check out. Here are some of Rob's current obsessions.
Probably one of the greatest things about the pandemic, and I hate saying anything great came out of it because it's such a weird, strange time, but there is a radio show on WFMU called Ira the K. It's an excellent mix of music. It ranges from like rare punk to Ethiopian jazz to experimental, with a very provocative DJ, which is great banter by Ira Kaplan of the band Yola Tango. The show airs Tuesday nights, 9 to midnight EST, and can be found online at wfmu.org. Show is also archived, so there's every Tuesday night, my wife and I cook some kind of food, usually from a different country, and listen to Ira's show, and just are almost like you're almost like a student of this man's musical knowledge. He's such an sort of I hate to say an expert in the field of music, but he just is. And because the shows are archived, you can take deeper dives on a lot of the artists or the music. And some of it can be found later on like Spotify. Some of it is super rare and you can't find it because it's just here's some weird, rare audio recording of the Angry Samoans. Boom, and it's one song, and like you're probably never going to hear it again, which is great. So I love that, and I really love his show. So that's one thing that I definitely one sort of suggestion. Another thing that I thought was really great was the Sparks Brothers documentary that came out this year. The film is about Ron and Russell Mael, members of the pop duo Sparks, and I've been a fan of that band since I was 13. Like literally, like my warts fell off, and discovering music, Rodney was playing Sparks. In fact, I saw them on their Angst in My Pants tour about 40 years ago, 1982, with the Gun Club as the opening act at the Santa Monica Civic, and I've been a fan ever since. And the third is an instructional art book, and it's called Grapefruit, written by the great artist Yoko Ono. It was written in 1964, and it's easily one of my favorite pieces of her work, and I look at it often. The neat thing about the book is it offers brief but far-out ideas like listen to the earth turning and things like that. They're short instructional pieces, and they're just great and they're inspiring, and they're kind of steeped in love and positivity. So without sounding like a total hippie, it's like it's artful, it's like got a Fluxus vibe, it's abstract, it's strange, and it kind of has just been an inspiration for a long time for me as well. So those are my 3 recommendations. I hope if you don't know about them, you can. They're all right there.
Be sure to also check out my book, Live Through That, available everywhere on October 19th, to find out more about what Rob and 42 other 90s musicians are up to these days. Head to my website at www.hipphoto.com. That's HIPPHOTO.com for a list of retailers, or just purchase wherever you buy your books. And if you like this show, please subscribe and give us a 5-star rating and a review, and tell your friends. We'll have new episodes out every Tuesday this fall. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.